Hello everyone, our next topic in genetics is going to be what we call human sex inheritance. In this type of inheritance pattern, we're going to look at traits that are only carried on the sex chromosomes. Remember, based on our work with karyotypes, humans have 23 different pairs of chromosomes. The first 22 pairs are what we call autosomes. The last 23rd pair are the sex chromosomes, where we either have X's or we have Y's. We're now going to be looking at traits where the alleles are either on the X or on the Y chromosome only, nowhere else in the entire body. So again, we have 22 pairs of chromosomes called autosomes, and our last pair, our 23rd pair, will be the sex chromosomes, where a male will be XY and a female will be XX. So remember, due to meiosis, you can only give one of those two chromosomes to your children in the form of a gamete. So every time you have a boy or girl, you always have a chance of that child being 50% a boy or 50% chance of being a girl. If we do a Punnett square, again, let's say we have a woman who obviously has to be XX and a male who is XY. If we do the standard Punnett square and look at all the possible outcomes of the children, this shows you now fully, make that an X, that again, of the four, two would be girls, two, this actually is a Y right there, two would be male, so it's always going to be a 50% chance that your child will be a boy or a girl. If I wanted to say something along the lines of what's the odds of having two boys in a row, well then you'd have to have, okay, the first boy, the 50% chance of having a boy your first time around, multiply that by the chances you'll have a boy for your second child. Well, that would be 25% or 1/4. So it's going to take into account the child each individual time. If I said, what are the odds of having two boys in a row followed by a girl? Well, first boy, multiply chances your second child is a boy, multiplied by the chances your third child will be a girl, and that is going to be what? 1/8. So you're going to have to work with X's and Y's in your genotypes moving forward for these types of problems. So sex-linked genes are found on the sex chromosomes. We're going to pretty much just focus on what we call X-linked traits. These are going to be alleles that are found only on the X chromosome. We're not really going to look at ones that are found on the Y chromosome. And what I mean by that, let's say you have an allele, I'll write a little h for an allele that's found on the Y. It's not really too interesting because Ys are only ever found in male offspring. So if you have a trait that's on the Y chromosome, only boys could ever get it. You can never have a female who has a Y-linked trait. So we're going to focus on X-linked traits because either males or females could have it. However, because males only have one X chromosome, remember they are XY, write that again right here, males are more likely than females to receive and express a recessive trait. So if you recall, I'm going to write up here in the top right-hand corner, the only way to ever see a recessive trait the way we're used to doing it is you have to be homozygous recessive. But now when these alleles are found only on the X chromosomes, if you have a male who has a recessive allele on their only X chromosome, they're affected, period. They don't have another X chromosome to have a dominant allele to counteract that. So males will either be affected, so there's a male who has a recessive allele, or they will be normal. Make that a Y again. At that point, males are never going to be what we call heterozygous or carriers for a sex-linked recessive trait. A person is a carrier if they have one recessive allele and one dominant allele for a trait. In this case, it's only ever going to be females. All right, females, you do not see them expressing a recessive trait as much as males because females could be homozygous dominant, where they're completely normal. They could be what we call a carrier because they do have a second X chromosome, and if it has the recessive allele, they still will be normal. Or if they're unlucky and both of their X chromosomes have a recessive allele, then they will be affected. So for sex-linked traits, we're not really going to be looking at just basic characteristics like hair color, eye color. We're going to more examine diseases, all right, things like hemophilia or colorblindness, all right, and there's a plethora of other options, but those are two of the most common that we're going to use both in this description as well as in your homework. So what we got to take into account, let's work through some of these problems. All right, we're going to do it the exact same way we have done any other problem so far in genetics. We just have to remember that they're going to be on the sex chromosomes, in particular the X's. So red-green colorblindness is an X-linked recessive trait. Let's stop right there. Let's give our symbolism. It's recessive, so we're going to know little r makes you colorblind, while a big R will make you normal. I just used R's because it's a very easy letter to distinguish between capital and lowercase. If a normal male, I'm going to stop right there. We have a man who's normal for vision. So his genotype would have to be X, big R, Y. He's normal. He marries a woman who is a carrier for red-green colorblindness. If she's a carrier, that means her genotype is X, big R, X, little r. She sees normally, but she does carry the recessive trait that she could pass on to her children. So let me put her alleles down here. Again, you have to use the X's. You can't just put the regular letters. What are their chances of having a child with red-green colorblindness? Let's stop right there. The first part of the question doesn't care what the sex of the child is. It's just what's the chances that they're going to have a kid who could be red-green colorblind. So we're going to work out the Punnett square. We're going to do it the same way we would do it normally. All right, if I had a recessive allele, I'm going to put that after a dominant allele, like you can see right here in this box. I'm always going to put the X's in front of the Y's. So every time these two individuals here have a child, their child is going to be one of these four possible genotypes. And if I look at them, there really is only one option here that could produce a child who's going to be colorblind. All right, so out of four, we have a 1/4 or 25% chance of having a child who is colorblind. There's another question that says, how about a boy who is colorblind? All right, again, it's reworded a little bit differently, but it's really asking the same thing. What are the chances they will have a boy who is colorblind? Of your four options, two of them, I'll put a little star here, are boys, and only one of them would be colorblind. So of the four options, only one is a boy who will be colorblind. So the second question would give you the same exact outcome as an answer. Again, you just got to keep track of making sure you're putting the correct alleles on the X chromosomes. So two different questions worded a little bit differently, but they still give you the same outcome. Let's look at another example. Hemophilia, which is an X-linked recessive trait. This is a disease in which your blood cannot clot properly. So if I were to give you a good stiff punch in the arm, just like joking around with you, if you had a bad case of hemophilia, everyone's had a black and blue mark before, but a black and blue mark is a result of capillaries bursting under your skin, releasing blood. Eventually those capillaries seal themselves, but you're left with this pool of blood that slowly dissipates. That's what the black and blue mark is. If you had a bad case of hemophilia, me even giving you a little stiff punch in the arm could cause you to bleed to death because you lack the ability to produce enough blood clotting factors that you could in fact bleed out internally. Your blood's got to stay in your veins and arteries. It can't just be pulling up anywhere in your body. So this is a really serious disorder. It says if a normal woman, all right, so what's that mean? If she's normal, I know I'm going to use H's this time around. All right, again, H, big H is going to be your normal. And since the problem says it's an X-linked recessive trait, if you have a little h on your X chromosomes, you then have hemophilia at that point. All right, but if I have a normal woman, that means at least she's X, big H, but I'm not so sure what's on her other one. unless I'm given some additional information. And that's the problem gives us that. It says, whose father had hemophilia. Well, if this woman's father had hemophilia, this would be his genotype. Males only ever give the X chromosomes to their daughters. So I'm going to know that she's a carrier automatically, all right, because of the information provided about her father. So I'm going to write her genotype right over here. She marries a normal male. All right, males are only XY. If he's normal, he's a big H on his one and only X. So I'm going to write his genotype here. Let's work out the Punnett square and then see what the question actually wants us to answer. Again, we have 4 possible child outcomes. All right, the question wants to know what is the probability, so fraction or percent, their daughter will be a carrier for hemophilia. Now, notice the context. We're trying to like turn into an English class now. It says that their daughter will be a carrier. That means they already have a daughter. That doesn't mean that they will have a daughter. That means they have a daughter. So what I can do in this instance, I only need to focus on the female genotype possibilities. I don't need the males because I already know they have a daughter, and the daughter is going to have to be one of these 2 possible outcomes. And it wants to know what is the chances that their daughter will be a carrier, and that means she's going to be this. This will be a carrier or heterozygous. Of the 2 options that the females could be, one of them would be a carrier. So your answer is 1/2, not 1/4, or 50%. Because I already indicated the sex. It says that their daughter up top. So I only have to look at the female options as a result. So be very careful when you read these problems. And let's do one more example after I give you a couple demos here. If you are red-green colorblind, you will have difficulty seeing what this number is in this image. I'll give you a second. The number you should see is not 71, but it is 74. It's testing to see how good your red-green colorblindness perception is. So most people see the 7 right here, but most pick up on just the bluish-green tinge and see a 1. But there actually is some like yellow greens that make it a 4. If you're colorblind, you can't see that. If you're colorblind, the image actually might look like this. How strange is that, right? You can't see any number there because you can't pick up on the subtle differences. But if we didn't, we might see that the number actually is 12 like we did in this previous example. But let's say this next slide is a 74. If you're colorblind, this is what you would see. How strange is that, right? All right, let's do one more example. Being as awesome as I am, of course, is a sex-linked recessive trait. So again, let's say that a big D is you are normal, and a recessive D is you're awesome and cool like I am. If Mr. D marries a phenotypically normal woman, so I'm already awesome, so that means my genotype, since it's a recessive trait, is this, XdY. I'm going to marry a phenotypically normal woman, so that means she's not as cool as I am. So she's at least this. I do not know what her other allele is unless I look at the rest of the problem. Whose father was also awesome. So that means her father down below, once again, was awesome. Males only give X's to their daughters, so she actually is a carrier for being awesome. So X big D, X little d. Let's work this out real fast. What are their chances of having a boy who is equally as awesome? Well, of the 4 options, there's only one who is a boy who's awesome, so the answer would be 1/4. And the second part, a girl who is not awesome. Of the 4 options, you have one girl here, one child who will be a girl who's not going to be awesome. So the second part would also be 1/4. All right, so remember, with these types of problems, you have to use your X's and Y's and only put the alleles on the X chromosomes. Good luck on your homework. Thank you very much.